just your average everyday trucker, keeping it real. I'm your host, Chris Blodgett, and you're listening to Real Talk Tuesday. This episode is for anyone who didn't walk away right away. Maybe you stayed in a relationship, a job, or a situation longer than you thought you would. Not because you didn't know something was wrong or because you were weak, but because you were surviving, weighing your options, or just not ready yet. Maybe you're still there now, unsure whether to leave or to stay, and that uncertainty is okay. This isn't about what you should have done. It's about understanding that delayed action doesn't erase impact, and choosing later is still choosing yourself. If you've ever felt judged for staying too long, this conversation is for you. This week's topic: whether you leave right away, leave later, or stay and try to fight it out, all are valid options. This is episode 197. Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back. As always, appreciate everybody. Appreciate you hanging out with me. I had to actually, for doing that intro to this episode, I had that one I actually had put together a little bit, and I had to be like, all right, I have to make sure I'm parked off the side of the road, because it's something, this is a topic that's kind of hits pretty close to home, and I know a lot of people out there probably are in similar situations. First of all, I want to throw it out there, of course, do little intro stuff. Anybody that wants to follow the Blodgett Show on social media, you can follow us on Instagram at blodgettshowpodcast. My personal Instagram is TNTruckerChris. I'm also TNTruckerChris and TN as in Tennessee. So TNTruckerChris on TikTok, and I have a blog, tntruckerchris.wordpress.com. I believe I'm TNTruckerChris on Facebook as well. On Twitter/X, I believe I'm CAZ Freedom. I don't know. I have to look. But definitely follow the Blodgett Show Podcast on Insta at Blodgett Show Podcast. And I'm still throwing it out there too. I am working on the content for the Storytime Friday stories. I do have one story already put together. My bro Rico, actually, it's kind of funny. He told me he has a story that he'd started, that he did like half of one, and he just has to complete it. I'm like, okay, you know, and he said like, hey, I can send you my story. You know, you're welcome to read it on your show. And I'm like, that would be great. I said, but can you, would you be able to do a part 2? You know, to wrap it up, to close it out. I don't want to just do part of a story and then have it just kind of like stop. And he's like, yeah, I can probably do that. You know, all right, cool. He sent it to me, and I'm of course like, what there is actually pretty good, but there's not a lot there. Like you know, because I have an app that when I write a story, I then upload my file to this app called Speechify, which, you know, it's one of those apps where you upload your file, like a text file, and you can have it, you can pick, like, you pay like a yearly or monthly membership, and you can have it read the text file to you, and you can pick different voices, like either just generic American voice, generic Australian, or you can actually pick, like, there's celebrity voices on there, like Gwyneth Paltrow, which is one of the ones I go with a lot. I think they have Snoop Dogg on there. You know, it's pretty cool. It's so Speechify people. If you know, hey, you know, if you guys want to sponsor this show, I wouldn't complain, because I definitely use your services. I love them. It's awesome. Maybe we'll end up sponsored by it. Eventually, maybe it'll be like, go to speechify.com/blodgettshowpodcast or blodgettshowpodcast for a 20% discount. That'd be kind of cool. But throwing it out there, hey, putting it out to the universe. Maybe I'll get sponsored by Speechify or whatever at some point. But so when you upload the file, you can see how many like pages it is. And then of course, like, he had copied and pasted it in Messenger. So I was like, all right, cool. So I, you know, of course, copied it, and I created a docs folder, or a docs file, or document or whatever on my phone. And I, you know, of course, copied, pasted, and saved, and titled it, whatever. And then I, you know, uploaded that into the Speechify, because I thought usually what I do is I upload anything I write before I read them to you guys, because usually my stories are pretty long. It's, you know, with my limited time, it's pretty hard for me to actually, like, you know, find like 2 hours or 2.5, 3 hours or whatever, depending on the length of the story, for me to be able to sit down and actually like read my story. Because usually I'm only off on Sundays, and hey, that's precious time with the fam. So I try to do what I can. I take care of what I can when I'm at home. But I try to spend time with the fam, you know, and hang out with the wife, spend time with the kids, whatever, see the grandkid, whatever, you know. I see them a little bit during the week, but because I get home and go to sleep and get up and basically go back to work, so it's like my weekdays for 6 days are kind of like, you know, it's like work and sleep. Work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep. But, so I love Speechify because you can have it like read it to you, so that's kind of my way of reviewing what I did, you know, see how it sounds, see how the story came out, you know. Because usually when you're writing, anybody out there, if you're a creative writer, probably know what I'm talking about, you know, like when you're writing, like project, a story, whatever. A lot of times, and you know, as you're writing, you're still correcting a few things, like, oh shit, I messed that up, or I misspelled that, or I missed something in that sentence. You go back a couple sentences to like correct the error that you catch at the moment. But most of the time, it's just, you just let the creativity flow. You know, it just keeps going. So I'll put it up, or I'll upload it to Speechify, and I will be, you know, I'll be going down the road. It's an easy way for me to kind of like review my own stuff, to make sure that it sounds good. You know, I'll listen to it while going down the road, have it play, you know, over the Bluetooth and the speakers in the truck or whatever. And that way too, you can kind of catch if all of a sudden it's like reading it and you hear like it pronounces a word kind of weird, and you realize, oh crap, I totally like butchered that word that I just typed. Or you'll hear it skip something and like, what the heck? So you'll stop it for a second, look at where it is, and go, oh crap. So then take a note of like what page that's on, so you have to go back and, you know, make it a correction, you know. all listened to my story, and so I uploaded my bro Rico's, what he sent me, and it was only like 3 pages, and it got to the point where because there's future self, current self, whatever, which I look forward to. I mean, I am gonna definitely tell you guys a story, but right now there's not much one in there, and I reached out to went to future self, present self, went back to the past, and this blah blah blah, and then of course went to the bar or something to talk to present self, and then it ended right there. And so the next day when I was talking to my bro, I was asking him, I was like, so was that everything you had, or did I only get part of it? Because he said no, that was the first half. And I was like, well, because bro, that's not that's the beginning of the story. So I was like, do you want me to? And he said, no, I can. He was like, I'm gonna go on there and probably try to add to it and complete it, whatever. I was like, I mean, do you want me to? Because I do have some. I was like, we could try to use. I could try to, turn it into something with what you have. I could try to make it, turn it into a complete story. He said, well, I want to see what I can do before you do that. I'm like, okay, that's fine, So there's a story in the works by my bro Rico that, whenever that's ready to go, it will be on the show or whatever. Because I don't want to just tell a 5-minute. It literally was 5 minutes that the speech if I read the story. And I was like, that's a little too short. I was like, I want to have at least, you guys have seen the past stories. You've been with me for a while. It's 2-3 hours easily. But, at least 45 minutes to an hour and a half, for me to read a story, it would be great. So, put it out there. Any creative writers out there, if you guys, have stories written, creative stories written that you guys, like me to read live on the show, make sure to have your name on it, written by blah blah blah, and I will give credit to you if you have if you want me to do a little shout out, a email address or a website, if you're an online marketer or something, I'll totally will give you a little shout out, be like, hey, the author, the story's called such and such, written by so and so. They have such and such business. Check them out at such and such website. This email address, you can reach them. Blah blah blah. I'll give you guys a shout out. That's fine. I mean, that's what these. It's what we're all about. As far as when you're online, you have a platform either a social media site or in this case podcasts. Just like I would like others to give me a shout out to draw people to this podcast, I would also give them shouts out, or give other people a shout out as well to help them out. Because, hey, networking. So send me your stories. Make sure they're they're not adult. Make creative. They can have swear words and stuff, but I just don't want to be hey, let's have a story that's got a bunch of sex in it and it's very descriptive. I don't want to do that, because I want to make sure they're somewhat appropriate, but it doesn't have to be no swear words at all. Just be creative. Send me what you got, and I look forward to reading them, having those be the featured stories for some of the Storytime Friday episodes. Send those to blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com. I thank you in advance. I look forward to reading your all stories. But yeah, send me your stories. Let's see. So, aside from that, I haven't gotten a Patreon set up yet, but I will. But anybody who wants to support the show can actually go to blodgettshowpodcast.com/support. Basically, once I get a Patreon set up, it'll be the Patreon as well as blodgettshowpodcast.com/support. It's going to be 2 separate things. Kind of the same thing, but it's one of them, kind of the blodgettshowpodcast.com/support goes through where I have my the podcast hosted through. It's got the support feature through them where you can pick different tiers. Donate $1, donate $5, donate 10, 25, whatever, or custom amount. And at some point, as donations come in, that'll help me to advance the podcast, to start getting, start figuring out merch, figure out things to actually, little gift gift bags or something with like a, with like maybe some merch or something in there for the donors, whatever, as a thank you, whatever. And of course, give you guys shout outs, on the episodes. Maybe start doing that once a month or something, or something. But a lot of ideas in mind, things that I want to do for the show. But obviously, and plus, like we have I have like stories that I've already written that like volume 1 is basically completed. It just has to be formatted, edited, whatever. Volume 2 is like halfway there. Any of those books, basically just to publish those. I do have there's a company I can work through, and it's like not cheap, but they do really good work. They would actually like help advertise and stuff like that. But it's like, I think to publish, to format and edit, help me basically get, and then of course to help me get it out there. But this company is like $15,000, and I'm like, well, it's gonna take me a minute, but again, anybody that wants to donate to the show, and those funds will go towards things like that, like getting merch out there, getting actual published copies of the stories that have already been told, and future stories. So blodgettshowpodcast.com/support, and whenever I do a Patreon, I'll let you guys know what that is, so you guys will have 2 options for supporting the show. 5-star reviews on whatever platform you are listening on, that would help as well. Any topics or questions or anything that you'd like me to actually cover on the show, feel free to email me at blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com. But with that being said, so for this week's topic, I'm sure a lot of us have been in situations where somebody, whether it's like a friend or a family member, somebody you work with, but somebody in your circle might have done something to you that you really didn't see coming. Maybe they did something, kind of basically stabbed you in the back or whatever, and then of course, like after it happens, you confront them about it. They're sorry, and sad part is a lot of times when it's depending on the situation, they're sorry. Not before you call them out on it. They're sorry whenever they've gotten caught, they've got confronted. Then all of a sudden, the tears, and they're upset. So sorry, I didn't mean to do it, or I was dumb decision, or a one-time thing, or there's so many things are said, and of course you'll see some of these things, especially with relationship stuff, on like Instagram or whatever. You see like reels or whatever, where it's like a husband confronts a wife, like walks in on a wife basically sleeping with their friend or whatever, and basically like, how long? And the guy, he tries to be like, oh, it's the first time, and the wife's like, a year. And he's like, how long? It's like a year. And then he walks away, and of course then she's crying, and of course on the comments you'll see things like, yeah, they only cry whenever they get caught, whenever they have to face like the consequences of their actions. But before they get caught, they're totally fine with it. Yeah, sometimes situations can happen where you don't find out about it for a while, and then it's been going on for a while, and then you find out about it, and it's like all the red flags might have been there. You might have had your suspicions, but you were told, basically you were kind of like reassured. No, it's not like that. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Okay, I'll trust you. I'll take your, it's like, I'll listen to you. But then let's say you find out that something did happen. They did wrong you in a certain way or whatever. They did something that basically destroyed any trust you had, destroyed any sense of security you had in that friendship, that work relationship, that romantic relationship. And sometimes the act of reacting right away, the act of like walking away, basically saying "fuck you," I deserve better than this, and walking away right away. Sometimes you can't do it. Sometimes there's ways, because the depending on the situation, there's a lot of factors to consider when you're reacting to a life-altering event that happened, that somebody did something to you, and it's like, if I walk away, if I leave, I'm gonna lose X, Y, and Z. Like, for instance, if I walk away from, if I walk away and focus and to choose myself because of this situation that happened to me, this action that was done to me that was then hidden for a while, and not, it only became public when you stumble upon stuff, or like you found out about it yourself. Let's say the person that wronged you didn't tell you about it. They didn't come clean. They didn't give you the respect and the courtesy, basically definitely the respect of actually being upfront and honest with you when they did what they did. Especially if they've been doing it for a long time. They did something, they kept it a secret for a while, still kept. If it's a relationship situation, let's say they did something with someone else, and then even if they didn't do anything else with them, but they still kept hanging out with them, and it was kind of like a skeleton in the closet, like, they didn't tell you about it, they didn't come, neither of the parties involved came clean about it, but maybe they communicated about it. Like, let's say something happened with a lover or relationship partner or something, and then the way that you find out about it later on is you come across like communication or something between your partner and someone else, and it alludes to something like something happened within like previous weeks, like last week was amazing, blah blah blah, oh that was really great, and then when they're talking about like things like, we need to talk about this because what happened is very serious, and like blah blah blah, and maybe you're seeing that and you're like, huh, okay, what the fuck happened? And then eventually, like, a situation completely just unravels once you confront. At that point, let's say that you start seeing evidence kind of backing up your suspicion, and you confront one of the parties or both of them. And then all of a sudden, we're so sorry. We only did such and such. Like, we only did such as once. Like, it was a one-time thing, or we didn't mean to hurt you. It was an accident, whatever. I love all the excuses they can hear in like different situations, like especially when it's something that was like a deliberate choice, and something like, especially if somebody in a relationship hurts somebody else, like a friendship. Let's say a best friend does something deliberate that they know deliberately will hurt their friend, but they still do it. Maybe they're mad at them, maybe they're angry with them, and they act out of like. Trying to think of the right word. Kind of like spontaneous. They just act. They don't really think about what they do before they do it. They just, they're caught up in the moment. And you can even ask them later on, like, why did the situation end up like that? And of course, they might be like, well, it's just, the conversation just went the way it did, and then it ended up going there, and that happened. It's like, huh, okay. Like, okay, well that's fine. That's totally fine. Oh, it went that. Oh, that's where the conversation went, and that just happened. Okay, I understand. Oh, great. That's cool. No, it's not. And if a friend did that to you, or, if something happened in your personal life with friend, lover, partner, family member even, and you get basically your explanation that you are basically given is basically just like, oh, it just happened. Like, I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't mean to do it. We were just talking about such and such, and then it just progressed, and then it just happened. Okay. A lot of times, And I'm, one situation that's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about here, as far as like it's okay to not react right away, to not walk away in certain situations, to basically react later. Like if we get to a point where it's years later and you're still having trouble dealing with whatever happened, it's still okay to make that choice, to choose yourself. So the situation I'm talking about is like my brother. Love him, love you, Matt. I don't know if you hear this podcast, but he kind of disowned me a little while back on Facebook or whatever, because of a situation that happened with my parents. At one point, I rented a house for my parents that belonged to my grandparents, and then we ended up moving to Philly because it was back in 2011-ish. I was out of work, had been laid off, been out of work for about a year, was on unemployment, and we decided to try to do a fresh start. So we were going to move out to Philly near my wife's birth family, and she moved out ahead of us. She moved in with her birth mom temporarily and was looking for a job, and me and the kids, the husky, the couple of the cats, whatever, we stayed in the house we were renting for my parents, while she was getting a job, and then I was gonna come out there and I was gonna follow her out there. Well, when I moved the entire household, we're talking like 4-bedroom house, 2 young kids. I think my oldest was 7. My youngest was like 3, I think. Maybe she was like 2. Actually, my oldest might have actually been older, I guess. Maybe she was like closer to 10 at that point, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I think she was like I don't know. Because they're like 7 years apart, so she's probably 10, and my youngest was probably 3 at that point, because I think she was still using a Beaky, the little pacifier, what do they call them, BB? So, I had 2 young kids, 3 cats, a husky, 4-bedroom house, and I had the largest Penske rental truck I could get, and I was loading that truck up myself. I'd been boxing stuff up in the house for a while, and I got to a point where the truck was full. I could not get anything else in the truck, and there was still a lot of shit in the house. Literally, I walk in, I look at the back of the truck and go, well, crap. And I walk in the house and realize just how much stuff is still there, and I'm like, shit, I can't fit anything else in the truck. Crap. So stuff got left behind. Like, we were leaving that night, I was like, well, I have to close up the house and just leave. Like, I can't. So I wasn't able to get everything out of the house. Really wasn't able to necessarily clean the house. Literally just like whatever was still left there. We basically locked it up and shut off the lights and loaded up in the truck with me and the kids and the animals. Everything I was able to grab, which I apparently forgot a bunch of cooking stuff. Cooking supplies that my wife had in the kitchen. Anything that I actually had seen that was out like on the counter or in cabinets, like over the counters. Those I grabbed, but then there's stuff that were in cabinets down below the counter, down lower, that I hadn't even looked in. I forgot a bunch of stuff. Again, trying to pack up an entire house by myself, I didn't do very good. We got a lot of our stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that some of it was pretty important that I realized afterwards, like, man. But when I left, it was like a 900-mile trip from Iowa to Philly, so it's like we left at like 9 o'clock at night. My mother-in-law, thanks again, Betsy, if you hear this podcast, she tried to help us out by booking a hotel about halfway. But because I left so late, I got to the hotel, not the night that it was booked, but I got to the hotel at 9 a.m. the next morning. And I had been driving all night. I'd been awake for basically 24 hours at that point because I'd been loading the truck up the day before. I got to the hotel. I was like, how long could I have the room for? Like, well, usually checkouts in like 2 hours, but we can give you till like 2. We can give you an extension, give you like 4 or 5 hours. I said that would be awesome because I just need to catch a nap because we're going to Philly, and I'm on fumes. I'm like drifting off the road, so I need to catch a little bit of sleep so I can keep going. But yeah, we'll give you till 2. That's fine. All right, cool. Both the kids were like, we want to go swimming. No. I was like, you guys can watch TV. Dad needs to lay down and go to sleep. You know, we only got 4 hours, so why don't you guys watch something on TV, and then, you know, we'll take off and continue heading towards mommy, you know, when I wake up. Interesting. Just past a prime truck that's like off the road with his flashers, but he's off with his trailer partially in the ditch leading off to the side. I'm like, I hope he didn't mean to go off that far off the road, but who knows? It's prime. Nothing wrong with prime though. It's like Swift. You know, I know there's Swift drivers that have been driving for Swift for probably 20 or 30 years, so they get a bad rep because they do. You know, but all companies have bad drivers that get into accidents or whatever. So, hell, I was with Sierra England, so I'm not any better. You know, when I started. But so I had called my parents when we were out on our way out to Philly, and I texted them basically said, like, hey, I wasn't able to clean, and I wasn't able to to pack everything up. There's still stuff in the house. I was like, let me know what I could do, like if I need to come back out to get more stuff, if I need to, you know, help you guys pay for cleaners or whatever to get in there. I was like, let me know. And I never heard anything from them. And so they, at one point, it actually, I think it's like probably a couple weeks to like a month of us being out in Philly, and you know, I was out to lunch with my wife, and you know, we were at Panera or something, and all of a sudden, like, we got tagged on Facebook. My mom did a post tagging my wife, tagging me, and basically making some very, really, I would say hurtful claims on my wife, like, you're a slob, this and that, blah blah blah. You know, like nobody would want to ever eat your food. You're a slob, blah blah blah. Like, how dare you leave the house in that condition, whatever. And of course, I popped in there like, Mom, that was me. Like, I told you guys, like, she was out for a couple months. I was the one there. I wasn't able to get everything. This needs to be a private matter. We need to not talk about this on a public Facebook wall. Like, they then started attacking me, and of course my other family members kind of jumped in there too. So I was like, well, I'm sorry, I have to block all of you because I'm not gonna, like, this is not okay. So basically my whole family for years, like my brothers, my sisters, sister-in-law, my parents, all of them blocked on Facebook for a couple years. And then I think I'd finally, like, I'd gotten a text from them, and they were saying that, you know, it was one of those where, like, you need to unblock us, blah blah blah, you need to unblock me and your dad, your siblings. And I was like, I will, only if you promise not to publicly attack again on Facebook, because we're not doing this again. I was like, I want to be connected with you guys, but that's not okay. Like, you know, my mom was like, I'll be respectful. Okay. So I said, all right, everybody's unblocked. And then at one point, I actually started going out there to Oklahoma, you know, whenever I'd have a load, because I was booking my own loads with Schneider. Or actually, I was with the Interstate distributor at that point. It's now Heartland Express. They bought them, but with Interstate, I was actually on a load board and booking my own loads. And anytime I started going to Dallas, and then of course, like, I would see loads going up to Oklahoma City, and I was like, And I know my parents are a little bit west, about an hour and a half, 2 hours west. And so I was like, I reached out to my dad once, basically was like, hey Dad, I know it's been a while, but I don't want to have there be a phone call. I don't want to wait until there's a phone call, basically saying that somebody died. I don't want to, you know, have the next update between us to be that one of us died, and that's why you're hearing from, like, I'm hearing from Mom that you got killed, or you guys are hearing from Aaron that I died out here or something. I don't want that. I was like, so try to reconnect. I've got a load going up to Oklahoma City, and I can come out after, I can deliver there Friday morning, and I can come out to you guys, because I know there's a Love's near you guys. I can park there and see you guys for the weekend. Do you have room? You know, would you guys be up for a visit? Scared shitless when I sent the message. Of course, my dad responded back. He goes, yeah, absolutely. Come, you know, we'd love to have you. like, when would you be here? And I was like, well, I could be to Love's at like 3-something probably, but I'll let you know because I got to get there early because it's a small truck stop, so I got to get there early enough so I can actually park. So I was like, how about I'll text you or call you when I get to Love's, and that way you can come pick me up. You know, like, yeah, that works. So me and my parents, I mean, things are, there's still that little bit of hostility from the past. You know, you can tell they still blame my wife for things that they shouldn't. Like, I think my mom quoted that, like ever since high school, like all the bad decisions have been Aaron's fault. I'm like, well, after high school, I was with my ex-wife, Lori, for at least 5 years. So I said, you can't really blame Aaron for that. She goes, well, when you went in the military, all those decisions were about Aaron. And I was like, well, I mean, I still made those decisions. So, like, yeah, I fucked up. I was young. Even in my mid-20s, I'm still probably young and dumb, you know. Like, if I was in really good shape and I could actually be back in the service right now, I think I would excel pretty well at it because I've grown up enough, developed enough, mature enough that I could probably go in and actually do pretty well. But back then in my 20s, having only experienced a little bit of college and kind of a doomed marriage with my ex for 5 years that didn't go very well. It was the longest 5 years of my life. Nothing against her, honestly, like, she hit hell. You know how it is when they say, like, when people that are separated, they're divorced or whatever, they're like, yeah, I'll always love her. She'll always have a part of my heart. Well, yeah, that's how I feel about my ex. Like, there's always that feeling inside, the pain in the heart because I really cared for her, really loved her, still love her, will always love her. And I hope she's doing well and stuff. But hell, I lost a lot when we got divorced because I was really close with her family and her brother, so it's like they were family to me. And then when we got divorced, I kind of felt like I lost a lot. Like, there was a big chunk of my life that kind of just was gone, So, but to kind of I've kind of rambled on this one a little bit. After unblocking everybody on Facebook and reconnecting with my parents, going out there, seeing them, I tried to get out there every couple months, and then of course I was with FedEx and was driving locally, so I wasn't getting out that way. So got out there once or twice to see them, but I had to obviously do the 800-mile trip from Nashville to go see them. And it's weird. I don't quite understand what happened, but like my middle brother, I'm close. Like, I'm cool with my oldest brother, but the middle brother, he kind of ran. I don't remember what happened either, but he randomly went off on me on Facebook about the Iowa house. Basically, was like, "How dare you treat mom and dad that way?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, mom and dad and I are good. Like, we've reconnected. Like, moved past it. Whatever. Like, Matt, you need to let this go. It had nothing to do with you." And so, ended up disconnecting from my brother. And it's funny, I had high school friends that, even though me and these high school friends were a couple years apart from my brother, I guess they were closer with him. Especially, a lot of them, there were chicks in high school were actually, fawning over him for some reason. So, it's funny, I saw my friend count on Facebook drop by, 40 people. And then I realized which people were gone. Like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So they disconnected from me because of the fact that he and I had a falling out. Like, oh, all right, trash taking itself out, I guess. Oh well, It's funny. One of them was a cousin of my ex-wife or whatever, which, we were friends at one point, but it's all good, She always had a thing for my brother, but a little young for him, I think. But so. But so yeah, to get back to what we were talking about a little bit, it's kind of a little bit of a brain fart going on there, but kind of delayed thing, So yeah, he disowned me or whatever because of that, and I'm like, all right, well, that's your choice, I didn't, like, I'm still here, and I even tried to argue, like, I've unblocked everybody, like, Mom and I are good. Well, that's great, you unblocked everybody, but fuck you. Okay, whatever, you know. So I was like, I'm not gonna come to my parents' house if everybody's there, because I don't want to see him, because I'll be afraid to start something. But so if somebody does something, like if something's happened to you, somebody's done something, and then that you say confront them, and it's something that you know that you like literally you have a legit reason to be like, all right, like, oh, that's what I was gonna say. My brother, in a situation kind of different than what we're currently talking about, but kind of related. My brother that disowned me, he's me and my brothers have all been at least divorced or remarried once. But the brother that disowned me, I think he's been divorced twice. I don't know if he's with somebody else now, but got divorced from his first wife, which I actually had met in person a lot, and I thought she was pretty cool. So I was kind of it's kind of sad when I heard that they split up. I was like, oh man, you're no longer with Karen. That sucks. Like, hey Karen, if you ever come across the podcast, feel free to reach out. I'd love to catch up with you, because you were family for a while. Hated that you guys split up. But so him and his first wife got divorced. And then he got with his second wife, who basically was like a nurse. Shout out to Nikki. I doubt she listens to the podcast either, but hey, Nikki, feel free to reach out. blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com. Love to connect with you. I don't know if I'm connected with her on Facebook, but from my understanding, from what my dad told me, and this is where it goes, where the part of the topic, whether you leave right away. My dad told me, I guess he cheated on her. Like when he was at one of the military bases, I guess he slept around with some other chick. And the thing is, him and his now ex-wife, they have kids. Like they have I think at least 2 or 3 or something, little girls or whatever. I've never met him, so basically like they're nieces, but I've never met him. But someday maybe, who knows? But I guess he cheated on her, and basically she didn't give him any second chances. It was literally like, oh, you slept around, you fucked this other chick, fuck you, I'm done. So she divorced him. I was like, damn, wow. I was like, Matt and Nikki got divorced? What? I was like, shit. I was like, they were like the dream couple, from what it sounded like, from how my mom talked about it. It was like, because she was a nurse, so my mom really loved her, or not really, she was a real favorite with her, versus like my wife and my brother Josh's wife, not exactly favorites on my parents' sides. Not saying they don't like them, it's just that, if we didn't do the career path that they, how it is, if your parents have a plan or a hope in mind for you, and you don't go down that path, you choose something else, you might not be quite as proud because you're doing something else. Like, my parents, my mom kind of understands a little bit better now with my career, because for a while, trucking wise, she was like, it must get really expensive having to stay at hotels all the time. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's, like when you're out in the truck and you're on the road and you deliver places, then you have to go find a hotel to stay at. I was like, no, Mom, I have a sleeper cab in the back of the truck. It's like a bunk bed. I have electrical outlets. There's a little bunk heater, a little thing you turn on that runs off of the fuel or whatever, but you don't have to have the engine running. You can have heat. I was like, the lights back there. I was like, you literally would just park back into a space at a truck stop, close your curtains, and go in the back, and you could be on the computer for a minute, turn your little bunk light on or whatever. I was like, we don't. She's like, oh. So that was funny. I'm like, what are you talking about? Stay at a hotel and and I know some drivers out here will, because if they're out here like my buddy Dave. Shout out to David, man. Shout out to Dave Goldberg. Missing you guys on the raw chat segments. I figured something changed, because I haven't heard from him in a while, and maybe Janelle. Shout out Janelle. I heard she was getting a promotion or something, actually getting promoted to office work, so she wouldn't have to be out on the road, probably get more pay, and probably could work from home too. So I don't know if he's just not getting on the phone with these other trucker friends of his anymore. That's why we're not doing the raw chat segments. But if I ever get one recorded, we'll get, anytime I get any recorded, we'll definitely have more of that and the Keep It Real segment posted. But he drives a day cab, and one of the companies he drove for, they would sometimes send him to another state. It was like a 500-mile trip or whatever, so they would send him to do a delivery and a pickup up there, and then come back, and they would, of course, put him up in a hotel. So he would get up there, and basically, like, I don't remember. I think he said he would drop the trailer at the customer, and then he would bobtail park at the hotel. Sleep for the night, get up, grab the truck, head back to the customer to hook up to his trailer again, get it loaded to head back, and he would head back home, whatever. But for my mom, kind of explaining that, like, no, I don't have to do that because I'm out here. I've got a bunk, like a sleeper cab behind me, and I can pull over and literally go back in the bed, lay down. So, but yeah, so he did one affair in his marriage with Nikki, and she of course divorced him, and it's like, I mean, that's totally acceptable too. Like, if something happens and you make an immediate decision, like, I'm leaving, like, I deserve better, how dare you do that to me, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if something happens and when you think about it, kind of, sometimes there's so much in your life that it takes a lot of, like, you have to sit there and think for a while, like, should I walk away? Should I make that decision? Because let's say something happens and it's just between you and your spouse. Let's say you don't have kids and your spouse cheats on you. You find out they cheated on you with a best friend or something. But you find out years later, after it happens, you see emails or communication or text messages or whatever that kind of allude to the fact that something happened, but it doesn't say what happened, so then you confront them. And then you find out that, yeah, they did, in fact, have a physical affair, and, they crossed the line, whatever. I swear it was only once. We didn't admit nothing. I swear we've never done anything else, blah, blah, blah. But, let's say the two involved remained friends for a while, and, they're still hanging out, whatever, but they never said anything to you about it. Never came clean, never gave you that respect, consideration, whatever, to actually say, hey, like, this happened. It hasn't happened since. We're really sorry. Like, it tears us up. We know that we fucked up. Can you forgive us? It's you finding out, you confronting them, and then they're sorry, and then they're upset. They're upset because they got caught, whatever. But in that situation, let's say it's just you and your spouse, no kids. Nothing really tying you down. Except you have a place, but it's just you and your spouse, or your girlfriend, or boyfriend, or whatever. Just the two of you, no other ties. In that situation, it's a lot easier. I mean, I would think, especially like for me, it would be a lot easier if it's just the two of us. To basically say, you know what? I can't do this. Like, this decision was made. I can't live with this. Especially, like, personally, I don't believe in second chances when it comes to infidelity. I feel like if somebody makes, in my opinion, if somebody makes the decision in a marriage, in a relationship, whatever, if they're committed to you, but they make the decision to step out of that relationship and basically go fuck somebody else, or go give a blowjob to one of their friends, or they meet up with him. Maybe they only admit to one instance, but then after that instance, there was a lot of occasions where that person was hanging out with that friend by themselves in their apartment alone while the other friend's wife was at work or something, being secretive. We only did it once. Did you though? So, in a situation like that where it's just the two of you, for me, my gut instinct would be, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like that, like this. That's you basically broken this relationship, and that's not no coming back from it. But sometimes there's a factor, or sometimes things that people will try to factor in. They'll try to think about when they're kind of like deciding which way they're gonna go, if they're gonna leave or not. Let's say they have kids. They built a life. They may not have a house, but maybe they're in an apartment. But they have a couple kids. Maybe they have grandchildren in the house. Maybe they have pets. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like we haven't had a dog in a while because not having a backyard, like a fenced yard. So we've had cats. We've always seemed to have like 3 cats. We've had twice now so far that our oldest cat had passed away, and then of course, like after a month or so, we went and adopted a new kitten. And so the hierarchy changed. The middle cat became the older cat, and then the youngest cat became the middle cat. And now we have, so we lost our cat Ginger, and then a year later we lost our cat Coconut. Both really, it's never easy when you lose. Basically, what I'm bringing them up is some people just, they're just pets. They're just pets. For us, for me, they're family. They're part of the family. For me, I literally refer to the animals at home as fur kiddos. I'm weird, I know. Nate, Goldberg, I'm doing a little shout out to you, man, because I know he's one that said like, they're pets. Nah, they're just pets. They're not just pets. Maybe hamsters. Anytime I've had like hamsters and whatnot, like for me, those were still, they weren't like kids necessarily, because they're rodents. Not as much as cats or dogs, but they were still like, I cared about them. You don't want them to die within like a year. You want them to be around as long as possible. Want to be able to hold them, whatever. But cats and dogs, you cuddle with them. They love on you, whatever. For me, they're kind of like an extension of kiddos. Because you make sure they get fed, whatever, take care of them, and then of course they cuddle with you in bed or whatever, and force their head under your hand to try to like, hey, pet me, I want love. Oh, okay, sorry. But let's say you have kids, let's say you have grandkids, let's say you have fur kiddos in the house, and let's say you're working a good job, you're happy with it, you're making good money, so sometimes there's a lot of factors to think about. Like, if I leave, where am I going to go? Where am I going to stay? Hell, even a very valid worry is, when would I see my kids? When would I see my kids again? Like, will I ever see the fur kiddos again before they die? They only live like 10, 15, 20 years. When me and my ex-wife, when we divorced, we had at least one cat together, and then I had a hamster that I'd had for like probably 2 or 3 years. Then, when I left, I don't know why I didn't take the hamster with me. I could have probably, but we had my little mini dachshund, Suri. So I took him because he was my dog. It was like given to me, or I adopted him from my brother. And so I took him. I don't know why I didn't take the hamster, but I didn't take the cat, obviously, because my ex-wife probably wouldn't have let me do it. But I left, and just like looking back and being kind of like heartbroken because I lost her parents, I lost her brother. Like we never communicated again. least twice since. But you look back, like some of those like fur kiddos and stuff, it's still a loss. So it's like I never saw the cat again, and then I'll admit I haven't done it in a couple years now, but at one point I looked on Facebook to try to search her up, and it doesn't look like she's very active or her profile's private or whatever. But I had seen something about, because the cat we had was a tuxedo cat. I think we named him Oreo. His back legs were a little bit too long for him, so like when he walked, his back feet kind of went out to the side, kind of a little waddle, So like I think I saw a post where with him and her now ex-husband number 2. And so like, oh, rest in peace, Oreo. You're a great guy. I was like, oh man, Oreo died. That sucks. But and then of course when like our cat Ginger, I heard Coconut like when I was over the road for like 8 years. That was from when they were kittens until the last like couple years before they died. I was finally off the road and I had that time with them, but I was gone. I didn't see them or the kids or my wife, except for like every couple weeks or whatever. So when they passed, like I definitely had that. I felt it, the fact that they're gone, and I really didn't get as much time with them as I wanted. It's just kind of why I don't know if I go back over the road right now, because I don't want to just be gone for a couple weeks and then see everybody or the fur kiddos or whatever only a weekend every couple weeks. Like, I mean, I still don't see very much right now, with my current schedule, because I basically sleep, get up, go to work. But I might see him briefly each day, like see him for a little bit before I leave. But it's still better than not being home at all for a couple weeks or once a month or something. But if you have fur kiddos, if you have kiddos, a life, it's like, well, if I leave, I'm gonna lose all that, because I'm gonna lose all the time with the kiddos, with the fur kiddos, with the grand kiddos. I'm gonna have to start over someplace new, even though technically you could say like you and the partner, girlfriend, wife, husband, spouse, whatever, might have built like a decent life together, only to have basically you feel like, well, if I leave, all this is gonna like crashing down, because like I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna have to start over somewhere else. Especially if you're married, you're thinking, well, shit, I'm gonna have to deal with child support or whatever payments that the court will order, even though it wasn't your fault that your partner or whatever did what they did. But you're gonna basically suffer for it, because So sometimes thinking about stuff like that, like, well, shit, if I leave right now, I'm gonna lose a lot of shit. So maybe you decide, okay, well, maybe I forgive them. Maybe that part of where it's okay to leave right away or to leave later or to just try to stay. Those are all valid options. There's nothing wrong with any of those. Just like, I don't think forgiveness, especially for really, really big betrayals, I don't think forgiveness is like a black and white thing. I don't think like, yeah, you can say, yeah, I forgive, or I don't forgive. It could be like you think you forgive them, like you're trying to forgive them for what happened. You're trying to move forward, but in some situations you might be told by your partner, like, yeah, it's been years, it's been this long, and we need to let it go, like we need to move past this. No, you don't. Depending on what it is, depending on how big the betrayal is, your partner, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, has absolutely no right to try to dictate to you how long it should take you to quote unquote get over what happened, or dictate to you what you should do. Like, well, it's been years. Like we moved past this. Like, you need to let it go. Like, you've already forgiven me. Blah blah blah. Okay, but again, other factors, other things come into play too. Like, let's say somebody betrays you with a friend, and even though they haven't done anything with that friend for a while, supposedly, they're still friends with them. They still hang out. They still talk every day. Maybe they approach you and basically have been like, I'll totally like not be friends with them if you don't want me to be friends with them. Obviously, I'll be upset. Obviously, I'll be sad because they're my friend. I love them. Like, been friends for so long. But obviously, if that's what you want, I'll do it. And of course, like most of us, aren't gonna be like. I mean, some of us might be dicks enough to be like, yeah, you need to kick them out of your life. Which I wish I was one of those people. I'm more of the, well, especially with certain decisions, whether it's something like that or if it's like things you want your other half or whatever to help you out with or do for you or whatever. There's a lot of things that I have the mindset of I want you to make the decision on your own because it'll feel better and it'll mean more if you're making it yourself versus like if you're doing it because I asked you to. If I ask you to do something, like because there's like somebody in our life that it's been a negative influence or whatever, and I say I think you should get rid of that person, and you do, but then you're more upset about it because you wanted that person in your life. You only got rid of that person because I asked you to. You didn't do it because you want to, which basically makes it not really mean as much. It's like if there's something that you want your other half, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, to do for you, and they know that you want them to do do a certain task or whatever. There's a certain favor that you want them to do, but they approach you like, well, if you want something, say something. All you have to do is ask, and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to ask. Like, I want you to want to do the things to help out. Like, I want you to help me out without me having to come to you. So when it comes to like betrayal and stuff, we might not tell our other half, yeah, I think you should get rid of that person, because then we'll feel bad because you're upset because you lost a friend or whatever, when technically if they cross the line, are they really friends at that point? Like, if there's ever something else between them, like they were sending like inappropriate texts, sending photos, complaining about each other's marriages or whatever because they're unhappy or something. They're unhappy with their spouse. Maybe you're unhappy with, or your partner's unhappy with you because you're either you're not there because you work long hours or something. So then it kind of, how it is, like when you start kind of like venturing into that kind of territory with a friend, with a quote-unquote friend, and the conversations go that way because, of course, like one party might be more like they're actually looking for, because they're missing their actual partner because they're gone all the time, but the other one might be looking more like, hey, maybe I'll get lucky, like maybe I can get, maybe if I play my cards right, because like they're unhappy with their husband or something, maybe I can get them to like, hanging out in the car, we're having our weekly hangouts. Maybe I can, maybe I can get them to do something. But even if after something happens, and that person might still be like, yeah, you know how it is. There's a lot of times, especially with guys. I mean, we're bad, but there's bad. It's not just guys and girls. We all have. There's always gonna be people out there, no matter the gender, that basically they're just looking. They're unhappy in their current situation, but they're not gonna leave where they're at. But they're looking for stuff on the side because, hey, I can have my cake. Have my spouse at home and eat it too. Basically, they can have their spouse at home, but they can be sneaking off and trying to get lucky with these friends of the opposite sex or whatever on the side, only around and tell their friend, I think you should work things out with your spouse. I'm not willing to leave my wife. It's like, hearing comments like that from people in different situations like that, like it just floors me when I hear that people have actually said that, like they got what they wanted, but then instead of, hey, like this happened, like what are we gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna stay with my wife. Like, you need to work things out with your husband. But we kind of already crossed that line, so if something like that were to happen, it's like whether somebody leaves right away or they stay for, either choice is still a valid choice. And if we stay because you have a lot of stuff that you would lose, I was thinking about this earlier. It's like, let's say somebody stays because they have kids, grandkids, fur kids, whatever. And they think to themselves like, man, if I leave, I lose everything. I lose the house, I lose the apartment, I lose the kids, the grandkid, whatever. Yeah, I'll still be able to see them, but how often? And like, I have to start a new job. Maybe I gotta travel several states away and move in with my parents, But then I gotta leave my job and I gotta go start a new job. It's like, I was thinking about earlier, like in that situation, it's like, how fair is that? Like, you're not the one that fucked up. Like, you're not the one that made the decision that hurt, that basically destroyed your relationship. But yeah, you're the one that's gonna lose the most. Like, you're gonna lose the house, the kids. Probably, especially if you go through like a divorce, if it's a marriage or whatever. If you go through a divorce, and you go through the court, then of course, like, you might have, let's say you have kids under 18 or whatever. You might be like, so I'm gonna lose the house, the kids. I'm probably gonna have to pay alimony or something to my spouse, and then like, also my kid is under 18, so I'm probably gonna have to pay child support, blah blah blah. So then let's say you wait, in that situation, it would be totally acceptable to wait. Like, if you weren't 100% confident about the option of walking away at that point, and so you're like, okay, well, I'll try to work, like, I'm so sorry, and you say, okay, fine, It takes you a while to get over the feeling like you have the knife in the heart, which can hurt like a bitch, and sometimes it can feel like it's not survivable. Like, that pain, I've had that pain in the heart, either from the death of a relative, when we losing a pet, even, especially if you're really close with the pet, like when our cat Ginger passed away suddenly. That was pretty quick. Like, one day she seemed fine, then all of a sudden she was like laying around, and so I was holding her a couple hours before she passed, because I had to put her down, because I had to lay her down on her this little plush turtle that she liked to lay on. But I had to work the next day by like 11 a.m. and it was like 2:30, 3 in the morning, and I was sitting downstairs on the recliner. I was holding her, and we knew she was dying. We knew she was probably not going to survive the night. So I'm holding her, and of course, trying to do the strong thing, basically bawling my eyes out, telling her, like, if you have to go, we understand. We love you, Ginger. Like, you're great. You're a great cat. You're amazing. We're heartbroken to see you go. And of course, trying to say that, hell, I'm choking up right now just thinking about it. But saying that to her, I even have I took a selfie when I was holding her, the night that she died. Because of course I'm just trying to document and remember. And so that selfie pops up on my memories on my phone every so often. And you can see her, like, she's still present. Like laying in my arms, eyes kind of glazed a little bit, but she was still there, and you can tell that I'd been sobbing. It's tough, but I had to put her down. I had to lay her down so I could go to work, or go to sleep so I could get up to go to work the next morning. And when we woke up the next morning, she was gone. And so it was like, man. And then when Coconut, we lost her. We knew, like, she went downhill quick too. One day she was fine, and the next day she all of a sudden, like, started acting funny. And then of course my wife called me on my way home when I was almost home, after dropping off the last trailer and was getting back to the hub. She's like, yeah, Coconut, I think, is dying. You know, she's doing such and such. And the vet said that they think it's liver failure, and that, you know, if we could get her in there, then they might be able to do something. But otherwise, like, just to make her comfortable. And I was like, well, shit. And couldn't afford to get her to the vet at the moment. So another service that if they want to sponsor me, hey, I wouldn't complain. If you have pets out there, guys, and let's say you live paycheck to paycheck, and you if something were to happen to your dog or your cat, you wouldn't be able to pay. Like, I know there's pet insurance, technically, but I've heard it sucks. I've heard it's kind of like you take the animal to the vet, and then you pay for it up front, and then they reimburse you. Which I'm like, yeah, but still, that's it's a couple grand. You got to pay a couple grand, and yeah, you get your money back. But what if you don't have a couple grand up front? So the service is called PAWP, P-A-W-P. If you guys look them up, basically they are a pet emergency fund. It's like, I think it's like $24 a month or something per pet, and when you sign up with them, it's like 14 days. It's like a 14-day grace period before you can use it, but then you can use it once a year. If something happens, like they got to get to the vet, have emergency surgery, something. As long as you're current, you know, you're not like, as long as you've paid your current thing and you've gone past your first 14 days and your account is active, you can use that service. You get on like a video call with one of their vets or whatever, and you know, you tell them what's going on with the pet, you can show them the animal, whatever, and basically then you can select which like clinic you want to go to have them treated, and they'll pay up to $3,000 for treatment for that pet. And it's like once a year that you can do it. And so, but if you have multiple pets, you gotta have a separate thing for each pet. So like, I plan to get it set up again for our oldest cat, which is like 12 or 13, but she's, you know, pretty good health. She's actually surpassed the ages of the other two, the previous two that died before her. So, you know, PAWP, they come across this podcast and want to sponsor me, I would not complain either. This podcast will grow. We'll get there. You know, we'll have sponsors and advertisements and stuff at some point. You know, it'll be monetized. I just don't know how to do it. Again, lack of time. You know, I don't really have a whole lot of time to work with, so I'm doing what I can. So keeping these Real Talk Tuesday episodes consistent, and then now working on getting stories so I can start consistently having Storytime Friday episodes. So, but fur kiddos are still part of the family too. So it's like, if you're gonna lose a lot for walking away, it's totally acceptable to not make a big deal. That's kind of how I am. Like, I'm willing to make a big and painful decision, but I think about it from like all angles. Like, okay, am I gonna lose? Like, will I be able to bounce back from this if I walk away and start over? Or should I, you know, because I've built so much with my wife, my kids, you know, working on like trying to get us in, like, buy a house, you know, get my wife a food truck and all this stuff, you know, paying off the credit and stuff like that. And so it's like, if I walk away, I feel like I would lose a lot. Especially like back in Nashville, it's like at that point, before we moved up here, you know, went through an incident, and I think my youngest was 14 at that point. She's about to turn 18 in a couple months. But if something were to happen, you know, when you got like a young teenager still at home, it's like, okay, but I might have to deal with child support as well as losing time with the kids, the grandkid, and, you know, having to start over, build my life from scratch again. And yet, the part that's bullshit about that is that you're not the one that made the bullshit decision. You're not the one that destroyed everything because either you were unhappy, you know, you thought things should be a certain way, but you're unhappy, so like maybe you see that partner, boyfriend, husband, wife, spouse, whatever, seeks a friendship that ends up being inappropriate with someone else, that then develops into more inappropriate stuff, and then of course they stay friends afterwards. It's like there's certain things that's the part of life that I think is totally bullshit, totally unfair, is when something like that happens, and the one that, especially when it's a guy that basically has to deal with that, because like we get totally fucked. Like you get divorced, and let's say the wife is the one that did something, she'll still get the house, she'll still get the kids, you'll still have to pay her probably half your income or whatever for support, and it's like, okay, but she's the one that fucked around and destroyed our marriage, so that doesn't make sense. So in that situation, it's totally understandable for somebody to be like, like if you can't deal with it, and walking away and starting over and dealing with all that is the better option, that's totally cool. That's totally acceptable. But staying, if you can deal with it, you can try to work things out, and you try to buy your time by trying to stick it out, whatever. See if you can eventually be okay. That's fine too. There's no one size fits all. One scenario works for everybody. It's like you stay and try to work it out. You try to heal. You try to get better. And of course, that's where if somebody tries to tell you it's been years, you need to like get over it. Like we moved past this. Like it's in the past. Yeah, but certain situations, it depends on the situation. Like, yeah, okay, there's somebody wronged you a little bit. Some things, yeah, if they're not that big, okay, let it go, man. It's just it's not a big deal, okay. But if somebody did something literally the equivalent to stabbing you in the back, dicing your heart into a million pieces, there is no set amount of time. There's no statute of limitations on making a decision, on choosing yourself and walking away if that's what you choose to do at some point. Like if you wait, like if you hang in there and you wait for a while and you try to work things out for a couple years, and basically you figure, okay, well maybe I'll wait, I'll try to see how things go until my youngest is 18, and then when she's 18 and I don't have any worry about child support or whatever, and it's just me and the wife, maybe I can, I'll have to reevaluate and see where I'm at and walk away at that point, and still have to start over, but at least things will be a little bit different, because at least you were there for your kids to grow up or whatever, and then you'd be like, all right, now I feel a little bit better about the idea of starting over, because I don't feel like I'm going to lose as much, because obviously they're growing up, I'm not going to lose them, I'm not going to feel like I just abandoned them by leaving. And you make that decision to take action about the situation years later because you're still not okay with it. There's nothing wrong with that. It still could be hard. It's not easy, like I know for me, it's like making big life decisions, like big life changes. It's always been difficult for me because, when it comes to things that are going to affect life at home, how things are with my wife, with my family, whatever. And they're tough. I usually will take a while to think about them. And I'll go back and forth like, well, if I do such, if I do this, it's going to affect me over here. Can I live with that change? And if I think about that, and of course the answer is like, yeah, I don't know if I can handle, I don't know, that's a lot to handle right there. I don't know if I can deal with that. I might hold off and delay making that decision. Not necessarily decide against it, but I might be like, right now I don't know, and especially if it's like, it's not where you're not deciding one way or another, you're just telling yourself, I don't know if I can deal with that. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay with if I made this decision and I walked away here and this happened, or I made this decision that would affect life at home or whatever, and it would affect it this way, I don't know if I'd be okay with that. If I could handle that, or if that'd be too much to bear. It's okay to be like, I'm gonna put a pin in it. I'm gonna keep thinking about it. I'm gonna keep contemplating, whether I think this would be a good move. And then if you get to a point eventually where you feel like you can make that big decision, and the consequence of that decision, the result of that decision, is something that would still suck, but you're like, but I can live with that. So then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make that decision. I'm gonna go over here, make this change, take this different job, leave home, do this, whatever. There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong path to take. So, on that note, I know I feel like I've rambled quite a bit, but I kind of also feel like I feel like we did pretty good on this episode. So it's like, if you have any, let's say that, let's say something's happened to you, and let's say you didn't leave, but it's been years, and you're thinking about leaving. You're thinking about changing it up. You're thinking about like leaving, either leaving or kicking someone out of your life that wronged you in a way a couple years back, but you didn't leave right away because the things that were gonna end up, that you would lose, things that were gonna happen, whatever. If you made that decision, were just too much to pay, that you didn't think you could handle them, and so you stayed. But then later on in life, let's say you decided, okay, well, now I feel more. I still haven't forgiven that person for this, and I don't think I feel like it's something I can handle, so I'm gonna leave. If any of you have had situations like that, I would love to hear from you, whatever. Hell, if you want me to even, mention you guys on the podcast, maybe you don't, that's fine too, but if you want, at least, if anybody wants to tell me about a situation they dealt with that kind of relates to this episode, whatever, feel free to shoot me an email, blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com. I debated on, because I was kind of trying to I was using ChatGPT to kind of, because like, I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I was trying to think of, like, so I kind of put in, I did the voice text with ChatGPT, and I basically was like asking a question, like, if I want to talk about such and such, as far as like not leaving right away, and if you leave right away or if you leave later, either way is fine, or if you stay trying to work it out. I said, what would be a good topic for that episode? And of course, it came back like, that's a really great question, blah blah blah, gave me a bunch of different things, and I was like, okay. So I kind of got, that's where AI is pretty awesome, because it was like, all right, well, can you help me figure out like an intro for how I can jump into this episode? And it gave me some suggestions, and that's really awesome. I debated, so I wonder if it could actually give me like a bunch of bullet points I can cover. But I was like, no, I'll just do the intro, and then I'll just, do what I do, keep it real with you guys, literally just no bullshit, off the top of my head, from the heart, whatever. So I hope you guys found some value in tonight's episode. Again, follow me, Blodgett Show Podcast, at Instagram, at Blodgett Show Podcast. Tea and Trucker Chris is my regular Instagram. Tea and Trucker Chris on TikTok. I believe same thing on Facebook, Tea and Trucker Chris. Or teaandtruckerchris.wordpress.com for my blog. Anybody who wants to support the show, again, go to blodgettshow.com/support. And anybody who has any written stories, I would love to tell your stories on the air, so feel free to send them to me, blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com. I mean, any stories work, but definitely if they're a little bit longer, they take like 45 minutes at least, I like to have decent length episodes. I don't want to just come on there and be like, hey, welcome to Storytime Friday, and then it's like a 10-minute episode because it's a really, really short story. Like, once upon a time, they walked over here, they did this, blah, 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 they lived happily ever after. I like to tell like a story with a lot of stuff, have some nice meat to it, you know, some substance. So, feel free to send me what you got, you know. I guess technically if I get a handful of like really short ones that are only gonna be like 5 or 10 minutes, I guess technically I could do multiples on a Storytime Friday. I guess that works too. Randomly thinking off the top of my head. But anyway, y'all, thank you for hanging out with me this week. At the time of this episode being recorded right now, it's technically like Friday night. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get a story recorded for this upcoming Friday, but if I don't, it would be the following Friday when it would definitely come back, when I'd have the first one. So I have one recorded or one written, and then like I mentioned with Rico, he is like a partial story. Then we gotta, he has to like, complete it, like, and obviously when I'm off this Sunday, my plan is to at least get, because I'm gonna try to get one or two put together each week, and before I start recording them, I want to at least have 3 or 4 in the arsenal before I start recording them, and then still continue to get stories written, so that way I have a surplus, and I'm getting current ones, and so that way when I'm recording them, I'm not like, hey, I recorded the story for this week, and now I got to get another one written for next week, because that's how I was doing it before. I would literally, right on my days off, record that, and then of course, then on my days off, write one for the next week. So it was like a week-to-week thing, whereas I'm trying to do it now to kind of like set myself up so that if I have a week where I don't write a story, I already have 3 or 4 completed, so it's not gonna be like, hey, this week no story because I didn't have time to do it. So anyway, again, you guys know what I always say: keep pushing forward, keep believing, believe you can, believe you will, and you're already halfway there, and then you just have to go out there and do it. Again, just like with this topic, whether you leave, if something big happened in your life, somebody betrayed you, stabbed you in the back, knocked you down, did something, really was like life-changing, life-altering, trust shattering, whatever. Whether you leave now, or leave later, or decide to stay, basically if you take action right away, or if you decide to basically try to forgive, try to work on things, try to heal, and try to move on, but then later on decide that you really, it still is a big deal for you, it still weighs heavily on you, it's okay to decide later that, that you can't deal with it, and that you have to choose you. It's okay at a later date to basically be like, look, like, even though it's been years, we're splitting up because of, let's say, infidelity. Could be like, well, yeah, they did this, they fucked around with their friend, and we didn't split up right away. We tried to work it out, but then, let's say they remained friends for a while, or the other, the partner and their friend that they did stuff with, let's say they remain friends, and you kind of had to deal with it for a while, and then you get to a point where you're just like, yeah, I just can't deal with it. It's like, this still weighs heavily on me. There's no despite what your partner might say, like, it's been years, gotta get over it. There's no statute of limitations on stuff like that. You can decide later on that you're still not okay with it, and that, you still, maybe you thought you forgave, but then years later, it's still basically like a knife in your heart. You're like, I kind of forgave, I partially forgave, but I really can't fully forgive. Especially if, let's say, somebody that was a problem, that was part of the problem, they're still in your life, like they're still friends with them. That makes things difficult too, because my wife, for instance, will talk about my ex. Well, it's like when things with Lori, blah, blah, blah. And then, cause me and my wife in March will be like 19 years. So she makes a comment about my ex, and I literally have been like, yeah, but I don't have a problem with my ex-wife. I don't have a problem with Lori anymore. yeah, we had our problems when we were married. But looking back, I'm like, I haven't had anything to do with her in almost 20 years. So I don't have any resentment. I don't have any anger towards her. I still feel the love I had for her back when we were married. You know, because like we were dating before we got married, and then we were married for 5 years. And so, you know, it's like all that time of not having anything to do with each other, that makes a difference. So it's like I don't have any negative feelings towards her at all. Versus like, if something happened with a friend, you know, between your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and they had a friend, but then they were made, you know, you try to work it out, you don't tell them not to, or you don't tell them to get rid of that friend, you know. Again, like I said earlier, it's like maybe you're like me, and it's like you don't want them to, you want them to make the decision, whether it's something they do for you that they know you like. You want them to make the decision. It means more if somebody makes a decision on their own to do something that's important to you versus like if you ask them for it. Yeah, of course they might do it because, well, they want me to get rid of this person because, like, you know, I cheated on them with them, or they want me to do this task at the house or whatever that would really help them out. They've asked, whatever. But it doesn't mean as much when you have to ask them to do it. Like special occasions, you know, somebody just like, I think a lot lately because of like the fact that even though me and my wife work, I handle probably about 90% of the financial weight of our lives. I basically carry us through, pay the entire rent, utilities. Sometimes my wife and I split them. But pay the phones, pay the car insurance. You know, she handles her car payment, which thank God for that because I handled her car payment in the past, and thankfully she took that over when we got her current car. But I do the bulk of the heavy lifting, which is fine. I make more than she does, but there's still times where I think to myself, like, it would be really nice if I didn't have to ask, like, it would be really the spontaneous actions mean a lot. Like, if all of a sudden, like, a certain bill, you know, gets covered without me having to do it. Or I was thinking about my birthday coming up in February, and I was kind of laughing to myself going, you know, yeah, I want to plan something for my birthday, but then I'm thinking, but I'll be the one paying for it anyway. You know, it would mean a lot to me if like something was planned and it wasn't like, hey, we went out to dinner and I paid for it because, okay, I paid for my own birthday dinner. Okay, that's fine, you know. But I could go out and buy myself dinner, get Chinese or something. We're gonna go get a steak or something, you know, something I really like. Hell, I could do that on my own, and I'd probably spend a hell of a lot less than be like, hey, let's take the whole family out for my birthday, and then I'm paying for it. Versus like, if, you know, what would be really awesome, probably not gonna happen, but be really awesome if like, hey, when you know way stations closed, so I heard the little beep in the background. I do the Mario theme when that happens. Da 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 da. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Da 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 da. Of course, like on the Raw chat phone calls with David Goldberg, he's like, level up. I'm like, da 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 da. He goes, neater, neater, neater. So on that note, guys, sorry I went off a little tangent, but no wrong decisions. Whether you leave early, you leave later, or you try to work things out. Sometimes we think we can handle it, we stay, and then later on we realize that it's still pretty much eating us alive. And you decide at that point that, or you wait to, like, let's say, you know, you wait until because you don't want to end up being eaten alive on payments because of child support or whatever, so you wait until your kids are grown up, you know, wait it out a couple years to see how you feel after your kids are 18, and then like you still feel, you know, pretty burned by it. It's okay to make a decision later. So on that note, love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Sorry about the length of the episode, but I hope you guys found value in it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, you know. But on that note, just know that Storytime Friday is definitely coming back. I am actively working on it. Just getting stories together. And then once I have the stories together, then I gotta find time to record, to actually sit down and actually record them. Because I don't want to just have AI record, record with an AI voice reading my story. Even though when I listened to the last story I just did, I was like, damn, that came out really good. And of course, with the AI reading it, it still sounded really good. I was like, I could totally just hit record and have this American voice reading the story because it actually sounded really good. But for me, I try to be more personal with you guys and read my stories myself. You know, for me, I think it means more if it's actually me doing it versus like if I have an AI voice read my stories. That was kind of me not taking a shortcut, you know. But it means I have to find time on my one day off to actually take a couple hours and get it recorded. But it's gonna happen. Got one story, partial of another story. I'm gonna probably get another story written myself this weekend. So within the next probably at least 2 weeks from the Friday just before when you guys see this episode, since it posts on Tuesday, that'll be when you guys could probably expect another Storytime Friday. Obviously, if anybody sends me a story, you know, especially if I get a couple stories emailed to me, that I'll have a little surplus of stories already, you know, sooner, and I can start going ahead and get some recordings done, get some Storytime Friday episodes scheduled. So we'll get that done. So it'll happen soon. So have a great rest of your week. Do what you gotta do. Make the decisions now, make them later, or tough it out and try to just work things out for a couple years to see if you can make it work. We got this. And if anybody needs to talk, you know, you struggle with, you know, mental health struggles due to decisions like this or whatever, just know you're not alone. Feel free to reach out to me on the email, blodgettshowpodcast@gmail.com, or on Instagram @blodgettshowpodcast. You guys are awesome, and I will talk to you again soon. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.